Hey there, Math Hoppers! In this video lesson, we will learn how to convert between degrees and radians. So let's go over some basic terminology for angles. With angles, we have an initial side and a terminal side. The terminal side is the side where the angle terminates or comes to an end. That's really important. We'll use that term a lot throughout trigonometry. And of course, we have an angle measure. Now, notice the little symbol in the angle is a theta. Theta is simply one of the variables used for angle measures. We generally use letters for side lengths and Greek letters for angle measures. Angle measurement describes both the amount and the direction of a rotation. I know a lot of times we simply think about positive angles, but we have both positive and negative angles. So let's go over the difference. Here we have a positive 120 degree angle, and so 120 degrees tells us the amount of the rotation, and the fact that it's positive tells us that we are rotating counterclockwise, the way that we're used to measuring angles or seeing them rotate. So positive angles rotate counterclockwise. On the flip side, negative angles, if we have negative 210, again, 210 tells us the amount of the rotation. Notice we start at the initial side, but this time we are going to rotate clockwise. That's because it is a negative angle. Negative angles simply rotate in the opposite direction. So you're going to go clockwise. This would be 180, go 30 more degrees, and we are here at negative 210 degrees. So negative angles, nothing to be afraid of. They just rotate clockwise, the opposite direction from what we are used to. All right, let's get some more room here. So angles are measured in both degrees and radians. Now degrees are easy. We think in degrees. Degrees are a piece of cake. We know what a 90-degree angle is. We can visualize what a 30-degree angle is. We can visualize 180 degrees or a straight angle because that's how we've been taught since probably about the 3rd grade. But radians might be a new concept. It might be something you've never heard of before. You know that your calculator has degree mode and radian mode. Well, this is where we'll start using radian mode. So when you think of a circle, you think 360 degrees. But it also has 2 pi radians. So 2 pi radians is equivalent to 360 degrees. And let's talk about why. Okay, so a radian is an angle measure that's equal to the measure of an arc that has the length of a radius. So I know that sounds like a lot of words, but radian and radius are super close together, right? Radian sounds a lot like radius, and that's not by accident. So what you have when you have radians is you have an angle measure that's equal. This arc right here is equal to the length of one of the radii, or all of the radii, since they're all equal. So hence we get a radian from an angle that's equal to the measure of an arc that is the length of the radius of a circle. So right here, if I were to pop a theta in there, that angle theta, would equal 1 radian in measurement. All right? If we think about circumference of a circle, circumference is 2 pi r. That means there's 2 pi radiuses in the circle. A radian is equal to an arc that's size 1 radius, so there are 2 pi radians in a circle. And if all of that means almost nothing to you, just remember a circle has 360 degrees or 2 pi radians. Okay, so how do we convert between these two? We have an equivalency statement, right? We have 360 degrees equals 2 pi radians. So we can simplify this equation by dividing both sides by 2. We'll have to do more than that, but let's start by at least dividing both sides by 2. Once we do that, we will see that we get pi radians is equal to 180 degrees. Now, I'm still not solved for radians, right? I have pi radians. I don't have 1 radian. So if pi radians is equal to 180 degrees, how can we solve for that 1 radian? What's preventing us from having 1 radian? The fact that we have pi of them, right? 3.14 approximately. So if pi radians equals 180 degrees and we care about 1 radian, we'll divide both sides by pi. Remember, pi is just a number. You can add it, subtract it, divide it, multiply it. You can do anything you want with it. It is not a variable. So let's divide both sides by pi. The pi will cancel. Left on the left side is 1 radian, and it equals 180 divided by pi degrees. So if I want to go from radians to degrees, I multiply by 180 over pi. Okay, let's use this little equivalency statement again. We know that pi radians equals 180 degrees. Let's use it this time to solve for degrees. So if we want to do that, how can we solve for degrees? Well, how many degrees do we have here? We have 180 degrees. If I want 1 degree, I have to divide both sides by 180. So let's do that. When I do that, we will see that we get 1 degree is equal to pi over 180 radians. So to convert from degrees to radians, we simply multiply by pi over 180. When we start doing this, it's going to make a lot of sense why we use each of these ratios to convert. All right, so let's practice. Here are the two equivalency or ratios that we came up with. 1 radian equals 180 over pi degrees. 1 degree equals pi over 180 radians. And let's see how we're going to use them. Let's first go from 60 degrees to radians. If I have an angle that is measured in 60 degrees, but we want it in radians, how many radians will it be? Well, first of all, which relationship do we need? Well, we are going from degrees to radians, so we need 1 degree equals pi over 180 radians. That's going to make sense in a little bit here. So 60 degrees over 1 equals pi radians over 180 degrees. Notice when you're going from degrees to radians, degrees divides out. Every single time you're going from degrees to radians, if you don't want degrees anymore, you have to set it up using the ratio that will divide out degrees. Or you can remember that you want pi in your answer because radians have pi, so you want pi on top. All right, let's go ahead and multiply this straight across. So 60 times pi is 60 pi. 1 times 180 is 180. We have 60 pi over 180 radians. We are not leaving it like that. Let's divide by 10. 6 pi over 18. Divide by 6. We get pi over 3. So 60 degrees is equal to pi over 3 radians. All right, let's do one more. Make sure we've got it. Convert 30 degrees to radians. Which relationship do we need? Again, we're going degrees to radians, so we need 1 degree equals pi over 180. Remember, if you have degrees, there's no pi in your answer, you want to multiply by the relationship that has pi on top, because you need pi in your answer. Okay, so again, degrees are going to divide out when we do this. So 30 degrees times pi radians over 180 degrees, first step you're going to take is divide out those degrees. Now we can multiply straight across. We get 30 pi over 180, and now we're dealing in radians because we've divided degrees out. Let's simplify this. Divide by 10, 3 pi over 18, and let's divide by 3, pi over 6 radians. So 30 degrees is equal to pi over 6 radians. To convert from degrees to radians, multiply by pi over 180. If you want to go to radians, you want pi on top because you need pi in your answer. All right, let's go the other way. Converting from radians to degrees. If they give you pi over 4 radians and you want it in degrees, which relationship do we need? We want the relationship that is going to divide out pi. We're going radians to degrees, so we're going to use 1 radian equals 180 over pi degrees. Let's set it up. We have pi radians over 4 times 180 degrees over pi radians. The pi radians is a little redundant, and I could have written out degrees, but this is just to give you the idea. When you do this, you're just going to write pi over 4 equals 180 over pi. The radians is really just so you see the radians dividing out. So once we do this, we are going to divide out pi radians. Always remember, going radians to degrees, that pi needs to divide out. We get 180 degrees, 180 divided by 4 degrees. Let's simplify that. 180 divided by 4 is simply 45. So pi over 4 radians is 45 degrees. Let's do one more. Convert pi over 2 radians, 2 degrees. Which relationship do we need? Once again, we need the 1 radian equals 180 over pi degrees. Let's set it up. Pi over 2 equals 180 degrees over pi. We are going to divide out pi radians, and we are left with 180 over 2 degrees. We all know that 180 divided by 2 is 90. Therefore, pi over 2 radians is equal to 90 degrees. To convert from radians to degrees, multiply by 180 over pi. Remember, if you want to get to degrees, you need that pi to divide out. So pi has to be on the bottom. Remember, you won't always write radians, just write pi. You'll do pi over 4 times 180 over pi. I was just writing radians so you see the radians dividing out. If you still have questions, you should be subscribed to our YouTube channel. Send those questions in. We'll make you a custom video solution. Till next time, Math Hoppers, take it easy.